Hello friends, this is Growl. In this video, I'm going to go over my first impressions of Resto Shaman in the Dragonflight beta for Mythic Plus Dungeons. Shaman had a crazy surge in popularity during Shadowlands M+, being a solid choice for nearly every season of the expansion. A big part of that was their powerful Covenant abilities that gave them some really strong options for both damage and healing. Unfortunately for a lot of Shaman fans though, Vesper Totem, Chain Harvest, and Phase Transfusion did not make the cut. Shaman did get some new stuff to play with in Dragonflight though, and is considered one of the most interesting class trees out of all the healers. Shaman has a ton of utility spells, and historically has been one of the healers with the most bloated keybinds. This expansion may feel a little bit different, considering that you're going to have to spend talent points on most of that utility if you want to bring it. Your skill bars might actually feel a bit barren for the first time in a while, and although it'll feel like you're losing your utility, I don't think it's such a bad thing. So much of the Shaman kit is very situational, and you can save points by not skilling things like Tremor Totem if there's no fears, or not getting Hex if you're not going to need to CC anything. That being said, it's definitely a bit of a bummer. I'm sure there's tons of situations where there might be, one time in the whole dungeon where you want to throw out that Hex or that Tremor, and you're gonna get to that situation and realize that, well, you don't have it in your current build. The reason that this is a problem though is because there's so many good passives in the tree. Swirling Currents, the conduit from Shadowlands, is back. This buffs your main heal spells. You also have reduced totem cooldown, increased duration of Cloudburst, increased magic damage, a big defensive avoidance talent, and a bunch of other stuff. The Shaman tree ends up being how much utility do I need to take, and then taking strong passives with your extra points. This can be fun for decision making, but oftentimes it ends up just feeling bad. Everyone likes big numbers and wants those big damage and healing boosting passives, and then you end up in a key where you don't have that useful ability for your team. Not to be all doom and gloom though. I mean, if the problem is that there are too many good things to choose from, is there really that big of a problem? Shamans get Nature's Swiftness, giving them an instant cast 0 mana spell every minute. There are also a few strong new totems like Stone Skin that reduces physical damage, and Poison Cleansing Totem is back as well. On top of all that, Gust of Wind is in the class tree. This movement ability has been missed since Legion, and now you can finally change off of Goblin if you really want to. It does cost 3 talent points on an already very tight talent tree though, so I do see a world where people aren't going for it in every dungeon. The spec tree is the same, with a mix of old and new. For dungeons, I was playing a really classic Shadowlands build with Ascendance, Primordial Wave, and improved Earth Shield. Unfortunately, a lot of the other nodes at the bottom are either raid focused or just not that strong. It is hard to compete with this build though. I mean, you have that strong single target healing with Earth Shield, you have Ascendance as like your big cooldown for emergencies, and then you have Primordial Wave to help kind of keep the group topped in between. The 2 new DPS options on the tree are Stormkeeper and Acid Rain. Stormkeeper is a cool buff for your lightning spells when you can fit it in. Acid Rain is, well, it's okay. A lot of people are a little disappointed with it just because its damage isn't super high. Also, its AoE is capped to 6 targets. It is definitely still worth taking, and it's worth pressing Healing Rain. It'll probably make up close to maybe 15% of your overall damage in the dungeon. That being said, it's just a little bit underwhelming compared to some of the other classes' options, given how annoying Healing Rain is to maintain. I'd like to see this ability lose its 6 target limit and just hit an uncapped amount, anything that's in the Healing Rain. Resto Shaman already has no abilities to hit large mobs. I think they're the only healer that has no uncapped AoE, so I'd like to give them a little something to help them with those big trash pulls so that they can keep up with the other healers. This segues how Resto Shaman stacks up against some of the other healers right now. Its biggest problem to me, it's just its lack of damage compared to them. It felt like as an evoker, I could be doing nearly twice the damage that Shaman was doing, and then I still have that bloodlust and kick that Shamans bring. Druids also have Mark of the Wild and a lot more useful utility for dungeons. Priests bring PI and Fortitude. Shamans just kind of lost their magic as to why it feels good to have a Shaman in your group now. Now that almost every other healer can bring a kick, and there's another healer with Lust, I think it's going to be a little bit less appealing for pug groups to want to bring in a Shaman. The other difficulty that I had was dealing with frequent burst damage events. Ascendance and Spirit Link are honestly 2 of the best tools in the game for dealing with heavy spikes of damage, but both of which are on a 3-minute cooldown, and in between those I felt a little bit dry. Primordial Wave is a nice heal, but it requires you to already have all those Riptides out. Shaman doesn't quite have the ability to just slam out a bunch of Riptides in an emergency, kind of like how Druid can use Flourish or Convoke, Evoker can use Echo, Mistweaver can Thunder Focus Tea to extend the Renewing Mist, and also Rising Sun Kick to extend them, but Shaman just sort of have Riptide. It might be possible that I should be considering some of the talents, like Primal Tidecore, for example, to help spread more Riptide. I'd also maybe like to see a buff to Downpour, since it really hasn't been used in so long. I kind of just want more options to help with the frequent burst damage. You can deal with it if you're really prepared with Cloudburst timings and Riptide, but I just kind of want the ability to get a little bit more help. The talents and tier sets were almost setting up to make Cloudburst the answer for this. Reduced cooldown on Cloudburst as well as increased duration came from talents. Then the tier set was giving you 10% crit while Cloudburst was active. Unfortunately, this just led them to nerf the cooldown of Cloudburst to 45 seconds. So now you take all this new power, and it's just going to end up leading to roughly the same general uptime on Cloudburst. And that's only if you have all the talents and the tier set. I know I've been a bit negative. It's not totally bad news. So the damage output issue seems to be at least in the process of being solved. Before the last beta test, there was a pretty sizable 20% damage increase across the board. I felt it was okay, but not quite enough. But as I'm making this video, another large damage increase has just been put through as well. It seems the devs are aware of Shaman's output issues compared to other healers and are boosting them up, which is a very pleasant surprise to see them looking at something like this, because I think it's mostly just concerning Mythic Plus. I think now, after this most recent change, the damage is definitely in a place where you're not hurting your group, being so far behind. That being said, I think it's still not quite where some of the other top healers are at. Keep in mind, I haven't been able to play with this recent batch of changes. The M Plus beta is only open on the weekends, so it's possible that Shaman starts to come out on top in maybe like 2 or 3 target fights, which would be a really, really good sign. On top of that, there's only a few dungeons that really require that insane level of burst healing that I was talking about, and I think it's somewhat likely that a lot of those will get tuned before launch. In tons of dungeons, Shaman felt totally fine to just be able to heal and DPS and go through like normal. Also about kicks, even though some of the healers can get kicks, it doesn't mean they're going to. Evoker's kick is a 40-second cooldown, so if frequent kicks are actually a problem, Shamans will definitely have them beat out of the water. The Druid kick requires 4 talent points, so not all Druids will have a kick. I think the only healers that really benefit a lot from this are Paladins and Mistweavers. My main concern is just my thought that Shaman won't be the king that it seemed to be in Shadowlands. It has more challengers now in terms of pug healers, with Evoker bringing a similar toolkit and also the return of Druid to power. If you've only been playing M+ during Shadowlands, you might consider Shaman to be like the all-time goated pug healer, but I'm just getting that it's gonna fall a little bit more into the middle of the pack in the beginning of Dragonflight. I guess I just felt like I had to work quite a bit harder to deal with some of the things as Shaman as I did with the other classes. It's definitely doable if you're a longtime Shaman fan, but it might not be the same easy ride the last 2 years have been. I think there's just so much untapped potential in the specific resto tree with stuff like Downpour, Ever Rising Tide, Earth Living Weapon. All of these abilities could be so cool, but just don't have the tuning. That's sort of Shaman in its current state right now anyway. It's well designed, but still needs a tuning patch or so to get it back to the top. Maybe this most recent damage buff will be enough, who knows. As for enjoyment of the class, personally for me, Shaman has never really been my favorite. It feels a bit immobile, especially without having that big instant cast powerful heal, like Druid has Swift Mend or Verdant Embrace, Holyward Serenity for Priests, you know, something like that. It definitely is an improvement fun-wise over Shadowland Shaman though. I wasn't the biggest fan of Kyrian Vesper Totem, even if it did a ton of damage, so I'll like the change to Acid Rain and Stormkeeper. I think that's going to be more fun and sort of brings out your more Shaman spells. Also, getting back Gust of Wind is really cool. The Shaman cooldowns for sure feel awesome to press. You know, Ascendance you can now pair with Ancestral Guidance and just do literal infinite healing. Spirit Link also feels great to press. I hope to maybe even be able to use Ancestral Protection Totem in Mythic Plus now, since you can use that and then also have the health increase to Riptide talent. I'm on the fence. On paper, there's so much stuff to like, but I have to be honest, it's my video. I just wasn't having as much fun with this class as I did with some of the others. Not really sure why. Maybe I just am a little burned on Shaman from playing it so much in Shadowlands, or maybe there's a little something more to it. But that wraps up my thoughts on Resto Shaman for Healing Mythic Plus and Dragonflight. I hope this helps you if you're wondering about the state of Shaman or considering playing it in the expansion. If you're looking for more Dragonflight Mythic Plus content, definitely subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting regularly up until and through the launch. I'm hoping to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Good luck with your healing adventures, and happy keying, friends.